I can upload it later on, and whoever is not been able to join today's session, they can probably do a recap from the recording.
Yeah, sure. Cool. So first of all, let me introduce myself. So you all must know me. I'm the one who created the community through which we all have been interacting and learning a lot about GMAT. And today we are doing a session regarding ISB, how things work at ISB from admissions to placements and life after that. And to talk about that, we have one of the two best people who can speak about it, Arijit and Shruti. These are also the people who helped me during my admission. I remember Arijit and Shruti taking my mock exam just before my admission date, and then they grilled me a lot. I cried, and then they helped me to get through the admission process. So I trust me, they are the best two people to talk about it. So I'll let them introduce themselves, Arijit and Shruti, one by one. Shruti will go with you first.
Thanks, Anand. I don't remember that grilling session, but I mean, nonetheless, you
Yeah,
you went through the journey, right?
yeah,
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here to share some anecdotes about the application process as well as life post ISB. Little bit about me. I'm currently CEO for Empower Foundation. Before that, I was heading partnerships for the Tony Blair Institute for their education program. Before that, I've been in consulting, different sorts of consulting. I in fact got into a consulting job right after ISB. So your KPMG's IC, I've done a lot of work in different sectors, energy, operations, as well as the education sector. Yeah, but yeah, and like I said, excited to be here and respond to some of your queries.
cool.
Great, thanks, Shruti. I am Arijit, and some of you must have interacted with me as well, passively on the WhatsApp group, responding to some of your questions. I am an alumni from the class of 15, PGP class of 15. So is Shruti. So I have been helping applicants get into global business schools for the last 10 plus years now via crack admissions, and talking with applicants, making unique stories out of their experiences is something which I love, and that is how I would like to contribute towards this session as well. Make sure that I can demystify some of the doubts which people have during of the process, and anything and everything at ISB, before ISB and post ISB as well.
Yeah, great. So Shruti and ISB, I have a list of questions that we received from the participants itself from this particular group. And for the participants in the session, I have, I received almost more than 100 plus questions. So I've kind of synthesized uh, questions so that we can cover all the topics. Plus, a lot of you had also sent your personal profile for evaluation and all. So we are not going to touch that so that this session is valuable for everyone. If you have any personal doubts, we can take it later offline, right? So we'll divide the entire session into three parts. First, we'll start with the admissions, then we'll go to the life at ISB, and post which will also talk about placements and career, in long term, how did it turn out for you, right? All right, so we'll start with the admissions first. So the first question that I would like to ask for you to answer is, so what does ISB look for in an applicant beyond academics and test scores, right? After GMAT and wherever they're what is exactly they're looking for?
Sure, I can take a stab at that, having worked with so many applicants for the last various years. So ISB looks to, first of all, when you go to ISB, they would like to create a heterogeneous group of people, because some of the important things around of your ISB experience would be what you learn from each other. Yes, the professors are fantastic, the faculty is great, the experiential learning programs are awesome, but there's a lot of learning which you get from each other. So ISB likes to make sure that there is a heterogeneous group in the cohort, and so that people can learn from each other. And the proxy of you being able to learn from someone else and someone else being able to learn from you is whether you have interacted with people in a non-academic or non-professional setting wherein you have not been incentivized to do so. What I mean by this is, in a professional setting, all of you are part of the same team, whichever organization we are part of. Anand currently works at Deloitte. Shruti used to work at KPMG. So everyone who's Anand is working with or Shruti has worked with are part of the same umbrella of Deloitte or KPMG. So that is, again, as a homogeneous group. if you have done something, ISB also looks for that apart from academic merit and professional experiences, do you are comfortable around people who are different from you? Have you been able to learn from them or help them learn something from you? And the proxy for that is your involvement in stuff outside academics and professional setting. Have you been part? Have you taken up any extracurricular voluntary activities or not? And when I say voluntary, it I definitely do not mean NGO. In fact, I would recommend not to use the word NGO because it has been misused a lot of times. Yes, and they also look for whether you have the leadership potential or not. Because at the end of the day, ISB is preparing students to become future leaders of the country and hopefully of at a global stage. So they also expect to see some leadership proxies in your past life or the life with which you are coming to ISB, so that they can make a sense of whether you have the potential and um, the potential, primarily potential to become a future leader or not. Yeah, I would say these are two things: whether you'll be able to add value to the cohort, and whether you have the potential to become a future leader of an industry of the at a global stage or not, is also something which ASB looks for apart from academic and professional merits.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. So we all listen to this, Arijit, right? That you need heterogeneity. Can you give some more examples? For example, two people coming from same organization, suppose a Deloitte. So what will make an application stand out from others, right? If you can give some more example, hard examples.
Sure. I'll give an example, and Shruti, probably after that, you can also give an example. So I'll give an example from an organization which is kind of considered as one of the feeder schools of ISB, an organization which, and then in fact, you and me both passed were alums from the organization before we joined ISB, ZS Associates, ZS Associates. I'm sure somebody in this room might also, if not yourself, but also know somebody from ZS. So at ZS, a lot of people apply to ISB every year, and a lot of people also get into ISB every year. So, what do the people who get in differentiate from the people who don't get in? Assuming both of them are at the same graduate from a similar sort of college, had the same years of experience as ZS, and also had similar kind of promotions as ZS. For example, somebody became from associate to associate consultant, and two people are exactly alike. So now, how does one differentiate from another? The one can differentiate from the other by talking about the impact he or she was able to make at CS, rather than most people get into the trap of um, talking about their functions. What have they done? They have created an Excel sheet, they have created automation, but they forget to talk about the business impact because of their work. So people who are able to demonstrate the business impact of their work, of course, get some more pointers as compared to the ones who are not able to do so. Secondly, apart from the life at CS, what have they else been contributing? Have they, for example, a lot of people the people are voracious readers. So people read a book. So if you are reading a book, that's not an engagement which ISB is very much interested in. But if you say, hey, I've started a book club with people around me so that people can share their perspectives of the same book and we can talk at length about it. That's something which probably another guy from ZS, similar, everything else similar GMAT GRE score has not done. So this guy who has done it, gets some additional pointers on that metric that he has done something outside work. Again, the aspect of being comfortable around a group which is heterogeneous, and also demonstrate certain leadership skills, which is a proxy of it is taking an initiative. So yeah, so that's some of the things which people can do to differentiate themselves from exactly identical profiles on paper. Shruti, if you have an example.
Yeah. Thanks, Arijit. Yeah, just jumping into that. I mean, for us, we had people who were coming from the same organizations or similar backgrounds, but they had done different things. But we also had people who, were from journalism backgrounds or doctors or army backgrounds or sports backgrounds who also got in, right? So, I mean, if you have a different background, there's a lot more ways in which you can differentiate yourself. But if you come from similar backgrounds, just building on what Arijit was saying, there are ways where you could show additional responsibility, right? It could mean that, if I take ZS or any, Deloitte or any organization, maybe you've taken additional responsibility at work. You're working with the CSR team there, or you're doing volunteer work, or you've started a volunteer group within your team, or you're encouraging them to do something different from, whatever is happening in the day to day. It could mean that that you're running, say, evening classes for children. I mean, and anything that is outside your responsibility, right? One is showing impact in the area of work, but ISB is definitely looking for that leadership potential. Arijit was saying, as you know, as he said, that they're looking for future leaders of the country in corporate or in other domains. So you have to. I feel that is for me personally. All the applicants that I've helped, that is one thing that I try and cull out from their stories is to identify where they've gone above and beyond outside their regular area of responsibility to take up new tasks and then to show that. And this new additional responsibility could be in their personal life or could also be in your professional life. So you're doing your roles and responsibilities that you've been hired to do, but outside of that, you've taken up new initiatives. It could be voluntary, or it could also be, say, starting knowledge management sessions, or it could be mentoring new joiners, right? Many offices have a buddy system, but then it doesn't work very well. So you set up a mentor group to support new people who've come in. So anything over and above that, right? A book club. It could be even in societies that you're staying in. Maybe I saw someone in the chat put out something around sports. You get people who you start a sports club, or you do something where you're living. So it doesn't necessarily have to be work related. Anything, anyhow, any means how you can show additional responsibility. I would say that would really make you stand out.
Got it. So, thank you so much, Shruti, Arijit. I think this was helpful. One major question which a lot of people also have. So this is more about, what can they show in their profile next? But what a lot of people have doubt is, what about things which are already there in your profile? What about, we talked a lot about background. So what about people who are from tier 2 or tier 3 colleges, or not working in one of the best firms out there, right? So they, before starting only, they have this doubt whether I'll be even applicable for ISB or not, right? So how would you answer that?
Yeah, so firstly, if you for everyone who has doubts about this, don't believe what I am saying or you are saying or Shruti is saying. I would recommend everyone to go through the LinkedIn profiles of people who have got admission to ISB across the last few years. Right. So with AI coming in, and you can easily write some scrapers and some Python scripts to fetch that data. And when you are fetching that data, you will realize that significant proportion of the people who are joining ISB every cohort is from not from tier one or tier two education backgrounds. They are from tier three or tier four. So at times, some of the colleges you probably have not heard of. Also, prior. ISB does not distinguish, of course, if you are, because there are different elements of the application. Yes, when it comes to an academic element of the application, and if you graduate from a tier one college, then you will get higher points in the academic section compared to somebody graduating from a tier 3 or tier 4 college. Having said that, there are other parts also. So if you're able to convey things very well, the impact you've created, even though you might have been in a tier 3 college, but if you were able to get a great placement from tier 3 college, if you have got some great impactful work post graduation in an organization, even if it's small, it can be a smaller organization. But if you have taken leadership role there, if you have contributed more, and there is tangible proof to demonstrate that let's say, for example, you joined a startup and you helped the startup where you're one of the core team members initially, and then the startup scaled to a series A. So you can say your team, which was probably like you were the only person in your team, you helped the team grow from one member to, let's say, 15 members. So this will get a lot of value in terms of when the admission committees evaluate your profile. So if you're coming from a tier 3 tier 4 college and work in a more less less very commoditized sort of an industry like IT services, then you should start thinking about how you've been able to create impact there, not just basis of your work, but outside work as well. So yeah, because ISB will evaluate you from all angles, and the proof is there in the LinkedIn profiles. If you look at the LinkedIn profiles of students, you will see that a lot of them come from backgrounds which are not the most premium in terms of educational pedigree or professional work experience pedigree as well.
Yeah. A follow-up question that we're getting on this, Arijit, is also what about the marks? Again, regarding the past experiences, what if you have not done very well in your 12th or undergrad, your percentage is not very well. How much impact will that have?
Sure. So, academics can only be compensated. Academics should ideally be a number should always be compensated by a number. That's the first thing you should think about. So, if your 12th has, in terms of weightages, your GMAT score has the highest weightage in terms of tangible elements. And what are tangible elements? Your GMAT score, your undergrad university undergrad score, your number of years experience, the kind of companies you worked with. So, and 12 score. 12 score has the least weightage. GMAT has the highest weightage. So if your 12 score and slash or your undergrad score is on the lower side, you probably need to compensate for it by a higher GMAT score as compared to somebody who has done well throughout his or her prior life. In terms of academics, 12 score, if somebody has a very good 12 score, has a very good undergrad GPA, then the kind of scores he or she should be aiming for to get an admission is lower as compared to somebody who in these two metrics have a slightly lower score.
Got it. Got it. So to summarize, your 12 score, your undergrad, college, grad, what GPA you have does matter a bit, but then there are ways through which you can compensate for it,
That
right?
is correct. Correct.
Yeah, got it. So I think we are past the things profile part. Next, we'll talk about essays, right? So because everything that you said has to be communicated through the essay, right? So I do have some granular questions in the essay as well, but first we'll start with on a bigger, on from an over perspective, how do you differentiate your essay? What are the major do's and don'ts, and what is it exactly that ISB looks upon when they are reading someone's essay?
Shruti, you can start. I have my whole thesis around it, but you can start.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, and just couple of things, right? One is you have to, because there are multiple things that ISB sees. Now, if you're quantitative in terms of the numbers, right? Your GMAT or your work experience or undergrad, if that is all low, then you need to figure out a way how do you bring that analytical ability or compensation through your essays. You need to show that, either through your work experience or through the impact that you've created, you're able to compensate for the low quantitative marks that you've had, either in GMAT or your score. So I would say that that is one area. Second, in terms of your leadership potential, right? Definitely, because you're trying to show that when you come into ISB, it's just not academics, right? There are a lot, and I know we'll talk about this, but there are a lot of clubs, there are a lot of events, a lot of opportunities outside of academics that you will be, called upon to lead. So also trying to show what your leadership qualities are. Number three, trying to bring that heterogeneity element, I would say, to try and position yourself or package yourself to bring out all the unique qualities, even if you're someone from the IT industry, right, which is the most typical profile that we get. So how do you try and bring out that heterogeneity or the different things that you've done, not just in your personal life but also your professional life? And four, I would say, to have a very cohesive story, right? The story really matters, right? It's A plus B is equal to C, right? So you have to, A is probably what you've done in your undergrad, B is what you've done in your professional life, and C is really where you see the future. So you need to explain how what you've been doing in your undergrad, in your professional life, how ISB fits into this whole metric to make you see the future, right? So that story, that cohesiveness and clarity in that story is also very, very important. So these four things really, when I'm personally helping applicants, this is what we try and bring out through the essays.
Got it. Got it. And a follow-up on that, Shruti, is how personal do you actually get, right? What's how do you explain that?
Okay, so I mean, it shouldn't treat the essay. There is a word limit, right? So there is also not a scope to get super personal. Even if, what I would say is, even if you're trying to get personal, you have to tie it into that story. How that personal, something you did as a child, say, if you're an engineer, but then something that you did as a child that really triggered that structured thinking, that analytical bent. So you can bring that flavor in, but always tie it into your story, no matter what it is, because you're trying to explain how that has impacted your choices and decisions that you've made that has landed you here, and hence now you're looking forward, right? If that makes sense, whatever it is, there is not a lot of word limit, so you have to be very, very strategic about what personal elements you bring. You can get personal, you definitely can, but only if you explain what is the impact it has had on your decisions that you've made, and how that is leading to a career choice or a life decision moving forward.
Got it. Got it. So also any major don'ts, right, which you frequently see people doing that they should definitely not do, and that is a wrong conception in the market. Yeah.
Sure, or I don't know, Arjit, if you want to.
Yeah, so major don'ts are thing. Don't say something which is illogical. Don't say if you are even if you have not done something, and if you're trying to portray that, imagine that just be cognizant of the fact that while the ISP does not expect any documentary evidence, unlike an IM application, which they expect a lot of documentary evidence for every extracurricular which you do, ISB does not expect that apart from the GMAT score, which anyway GMAT sends, and your 12th and undergrad mark sheets. They don't expect any documentary evidence. However, whatever you are writing in the application, you need to be sure that if they ask you a question around that in an interview, you will be able to talk at length about it. It should not seem that you're just writing something in the application for the sake of writing. A lot of times people have done it, like they have come back to me for mock interviews and they have written something. And when I told them, why have you written something? They said that I wanted to add that edge element in my essays. So that hence I wrote that. So that, yes, it's of course you want to highlight, you want to differentiate, you want to add edge elements, but don't dig your own grave. Don't say something which can go back against you. For example, if you have 2 years of experience, you started and you suddenly write things in your essays that you've been part of a 100 crore project and you've led the business development of an 100 crore project, etc., etc. While you might have done it, but it will obviously raise a question mark in the mind of the reader that how will somebody with just 2 years of experience, not as family business, but and as an employee, how can he get exposure to something which is a 100 crore worth project? So write things which are realistic. You don't have to, which are honest, realistic, but of course there's a story around it. Then there are a few other red flags. For example, your story should not only just be professional or just be personal. Just be personal is absolutely no. Just be professional is also not on looked at very in a very bright manner. Just because of the fact that I told you, like you need to show, demonstrate some work outside your professional academic realm. Third, in terms of career goals, you should not write a career goal which is unrealistic. You should look at the ISB's placement stats. Be very sure about what kind of placements or recruitment do people from your background or similar background are getting into. And so you, while after getting into ISB and while preparing or applying for recruitment or placements, you can apply anywhere. Nobody gives a damn or where you're applying to. But when you are writing your application, you should not write goals which are unrealistic. For example, if somebody working in IT services suddenly says that I want to transition to investment banking, can you do that? Uh, Theoretically, yes. Practically, just after ISB, very, 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 very low chances. Because A, that transition is very difficult. B, the recruiters have a lot more, the number of recruiters coming for investment banking or front end financial roles are far and few at ISB. C, even if they are recruiting somebody, they would recruit somebody who has relevant experience. For example, who's a CA, who's a CFA, who's done work in finance, not not somebody who's coming from an IT services background. So hence, you should be aware of these pitfalls when you are writing your application. That no, don't write anything which is illogical, which is not practical, and which you can't defend in or justify in an interview.
I just want to jump in and give another example here, right? Now, thanks to AI everyone can build the best personas of themselves, right? We can have the most amazing experiences that we've done, or we may have done X, but we know now how to glorify it and write it as if it seems like we've achieved a lot. But definitely something that you will, when the admissions committee is reviewing these, they look at the authenticity of it. There are ways and means to test that. But more importantly, even if you cross that barrier, when you come into an interview, if you've created that persona, there is just absolutely no way that you'll be able to speak about it with confidence. And we've had, quite a few interviews, applicants where they've created personas and we've tried to help them, but then they've just not been able to respond to that with, conviction, with the numbers, with the strategies, with which they had written about it, right, in their essays. So even, please, that is one thing that I want to tell everyone, to please be honest about what you're doing. Don't, thanks to AI, don't just create this persona that you think will make you really stand out, because the admissions committee can see through it. And if for whatever reason you make it to the interview, it's really, you're going to fall flat in your face and you won't be able to back that story up.
Yeah. Yeah, fair, Shruti. I think a lot of people also asked about how to actually use AI, and is it even advisable to use AI when you write your application? So I think you answered it fairly well, that even if you're using it, where should not go, right? Cool.
Yeah, and of
I think
course,
yeah,
with
agree.
respect to AI, ISB has those plagiarism checkers. So if you're writing something via AI, the ISB has the means, and me, Anand, and Shruti were part of the cohort at ISB. We know that even before AI came into, ISB had a stringent tech policy around plagiarism. Anyone who's got caught cheating, if you don't get a, you are caught cheating and in the program, gets immediately suspended, and that's the worst thing to happen. And I mean, while it does not happen like this in the application, but yes, of course, the application gets immediately rejected if they figure out from their plagiarism checker platform whether if you have more than 30% of things written by AI or not. So even if you're being using AI, go feel free to go ahead. Remember what Shruti said, and from a technical perspective, make sure that you run it through multiple AI checker platforms so that the answer is the rest. There's no 30%. It's less than 30%. The match, the plagiarism, the number which they give is less than 30%.
Yeah, cool. I think we have covered the SS part mostly. We'll move to the applications now. When should we apply? Round one, round two, round three, and do they make any difference?
Yeah. So see, firstly, when you should apply is you should apply not with a thought that okay, if it doesn't happen this year, I'll probably apply again next year. A lot of people go with that attitude. If it doesn't happen next year, this year, I'll apply next year. So what's a big deal? There is no big deal. But when if you are giving your when you are submitting an application, you should give your best foot forward. So now that is the one, that is the, and this metric will determine whether you should be applying in round one or round two or round three. You should apply in a round where you feel you have maximized your potential with respect to all aspects of the application. First, starting with if you have maximized the GMAT or the GRE score you can get. If in terms of professional experience, you have maximized the number of promotions you can or career leadership which will do. For example, if you are up for, a lot of people are up for promotions in the month of December. So for those people, if you are up for a promotion in the month of December and till now you didn't have any promotion at work, you should rather defer it to round two, right? And some people keep ISB as the backup after they don't get into a American school, M7 or T20 school. So in that cases, it all makes sense for you to apply in round three after you've exhausted your round one applications in other places. But yes, do apply when you feel that you are the most like you, it's the best version of yourself, the best version of essays, the best version of professional experience, the best version of your GMAT GRE score. That should be the only criteria which should determine whether you apply in round one or round two or round three. Because it's, see, in terms of number of people getting admission in round one, round two, and round three, it's 45, 35, and 20 in terms of overall percentage. If there are, let's say, 900 students in the program, 45% of them are admitted via round one. Having said that, not everyone is admitted by round one. Some people are given or put on the wait list in round one, and they get to know they're selected at the end of round two selections or round three selections. So there is no, I mean, since you are applying in India, 99.9% of the applicants are Indian applicants. So you don't have to worry about round one and round two or round three. You should apply when you believe you have the best version of your candidature.
Perfect. Perfect. Cool. Uh, Next, let's talk about interview, Arijit. Next part. So, what a lot of people wanted to know is how does ISB interview different from what IMs do, right? Do you need to read a lot about other things as well apart from your applications? Right. So, how does the interview go?
Sure. I can probably take this, and Arjit, feel free to add. It's very, very different compared to the IM interviews. The ISB interview is a mix of someone from the admissions committee and alumni. Sometimes there are professors also, but mostly we've seen admissions committee people and a few alumni. It's very, and where the difference lies is the ISB interviews are not testing for general knowledge, right? Or if you have interest in a particular field, say sports or engine, it's not testing for how much, if you say you love cricket, so they're not going to start asking you stats or about cricketers or their history and backgrounds, right? That is, it's not on theoretic, no, or if you tell them that you're a mechanical engineer, they will not start asking you things from college or from engineering days, right? That is really where the difference lies. The ISB interviews, they're trying to understand your story, so whatever you've written, they really want to know you as a person. They want to understand what differentiates you, how you stand out, and they want to understand your goals, right? That whole A plus B equal to C, like what you've done, where ISB fits into the picture, where you're going to go. So they're very, I would say they're not, before the interviews, the alumni or whoever the interview panel, they're also briefed to not make it a stress interview. It's definitely not, they're going to put you in a pressure situation because ISB is a pressure cooker and see how you're going to do. It's none of that. It's not GK or, testing your theoretical knowledge on a subject that you love. It is definitely just trying to get to know you as a person, what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, what your life story has been, and then more importantly, trying to understand what your career goal is and where ISB fits. So it can be, similar to job interviews also, some elements of that. But yeah, and it's a great experience. You also discover a lot and about your own self while you're in that interview. And yeah, alumni, all the alumni, admission committee members, or professors, whoever's on the panel, everyone's very friendly, where, they'll make sure that you're comfortable answering, and if you want to take a moment to pause, there is space for you to also do that. So don't imagine, like, three or four people who are trying to just grill you and get the worst out of you. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, but whatever, that being said, whatever is written about ourselves, they'll go in very detail. I remember, one of the interview that I gave. So I had written that I like to tell stories and I liked playing badminton. So the first question that came was, tell me a very good story of a badminton. And Shruti had asked me that question, right? So, sometimes you're not prepared on that. So it's, even though they won't ask you any GK or something like that, but whatever we have written in the essays application, whatever, you'll have to be very, very thorough with it. You can't write a single word where you are not very, very confident or you are done. Right?
Absolutely. I completely agree. And hence, don't create personas that are not truthful, because you will just not be able to respond with that conviction in an interview.
Yeah. Cool. Also, Shruti, on that, when the interview happens, do they have a list of, factors they want to evaluate you on, or is it very conversational? Like wherever you want to take it, you will take it, or do they come up with a fixed set of questions, the interviewers?
Sure. So in terms of the briefing again, right, for each before every interview, the panelists only get the profile like 10 minutes before, right? So they don't necessarily have that time to come with a list of pre-prepared questions. The admissions committee also does not share a list of pre-prepared questions. This is what you have to ask. So it's really very, very organic, it starts off with what to give like explain yourself in the sense what is it that you've done, what is your profile, your background, why do you want to come, and then that sort of determines the course of the interview. And then as Anand was saying, right, if there's something you've written and they want to go in detail, they'll go in detail from there. So you do have as much of an opportunity to steer the interview in a direction of your strengths or things that you like. In Anand's case, if it was badminton and storytelling, right? So someone picked up on that, and he could have led with it to an area where he's confident about. Yeah, so I wouldn't say that there is a list of pre-prepared questions, because they get the profile only. They have like barely 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to skim through. So as you come into the room and as you're explaining your story, that's when they're framing their questions.
Got it. Got it. So they are not specific elements which they want to test. In general, it will go, depending on what the person has written.
Having said that, while what both of you said is absolutely true, there are broad macro themes which interviewers are supposed to evaluate you on. The questions are absolutely discretion to the interviewer. An interviewer can ask any question. That is his or her complete prerogative and discretionary thought process. However, there are certain broad macro themes on which the interviewers would ISB expects interviewers to gauge any applicant. Those themes are around leadership potential, subject matter expertise on in the industry you're coming from, as well as the industry you want to get into, what you bring to the table. Do you have kind of analytical skills? Are you able to work in a group setting, which is a team environment? So these are a few five. There are five about macro themes which they try to evaluate by asking you different sort of questions. So again, these questions, there's not a library or a library of questions against each topic, but then these are the broad topics on which the questions are asked, on which themes the questions are asked, because these are topics on which the interviewers have to evaluate an applicant. So yeah, so just be aware about these leadership potential, subject matter knowledge, who you are, how have you done your introspection and reflection about who you are as an individual, what do you bring to the table, and your analytical skills and communication skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I think now we will move to the application inside the ISB part. But I just want to address everyone that I know you have a lot more questions than what we are covering right now. And it is impossible for, in a session like this to cover each and every question that, you all have. So please take it in the WhatsApp group. When we finish the session, put down your questions in the chat. I'll try to answer as many, and Arijit also there in the group. We'll try to answer as many questions over there. So we'll keep things broad here, and yeah, anything related to GMAT also please text in the group. I'll answer. Cool. Next is we'll move to the inside the ISB part. We have 5-10 minutes left, so we'll quickly cover this part. So people should know that how it is and how beneficial it is to go. How does it feel to be inside as well, right? So first of all, my question to both of you is: was it worth it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start. Yeah, most definitely worth it. It gave a lot of from a very tangible sense in India. Of course, all of us, let's not sugarcoat things. Everyone in India wants to have a brand behind their back, and with having ISB as a brand, it gives you a lot of confidence to take a lot of risks. Right? Of course, there is a financial element to it, and you need to figure out how do you manage your finances. But once your finances are taken care of, like once your loan is settled, etc., the brand at the pedigree behind your back opens a lot of doors for you. And I say opens doors for you. It does not get you inside, but rather it will just open the door for you as compared to someone else. So your struggle to apply for a job, raise a fund investment, find a co-founder, get a supplier, get a contract, etc., are easier if you come with a pedigree. And that is true for all good MBA programs in the country, and that true for all good engineering programs also in the country. If you graduate from ISB or Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, your doors will open. Right? That's the first thing. That's in terms of a benefit which you get. Second is I think in terms of ROI, you should look at ROI not only from an immediate short-term perspective, you should look at from a long-term perspective. And some people who are from finance backgrounds understand the concept of DCF, discounted cash flows. So you understand how valuations are done across time. So you shouldn't think about an ROI from an immediate day 365 ROI, like what you get right after the program. should look at it from a 10-year horizon, what you stand to gain. And that stand to gain is a lot of network or a lot of people you would know in your circuit who will help you make less mistakes. For example, if you're trying to do something, nobody can tell you how to do it the right way, but talking with people in the ISB cohort will help you reduce some of the mistakes which you otherwise would have done if you had done doing things independently. So that is definite value. Yeah, I think for me, these two are the definite value added additions. And thirdly, of course, um, you can always you always have a connect when you are talking reaching out to some people. The ISB's alums being from 2002 onwards, 25 years, almost 24 plus years of alum base. So alums are across the world, across the group. So you can also, if you go to a different state, different country, you can always find somebody as an alum and probably get some tangible intangible benefits from that interaction with them. Yeah, so I think these are some of the benefits which you can get from the program. But of course, that's my perspective looking at things. I'm sure, Anand, you have your own perspective, and Shruti, you will also have your own perspective around these things, around this.
Yeah, I mean, thanks. I mean, that's just to add a different, slightly more colorful perspective. If I had to, or if if you go take a poll within the ISB alumni community, almost I think 95% people will say we would love to do that again, right? That 1 year was really the best year of your life. You don't. I mean, now that I think of it, it almost seems like you have 36 hours in a day, right? It really, that year pushes you beyond your comfort zone. It makes you take the highest risks possible, but also at the same time, you learn how to prioritize, you learn how to lead groups of people who are so completely different, who are, experts in their own field. There's a lot of learning even outside of academics that happens in that 1 year. It is a roller coaster by all means, but it is a roller coaster in which you're grabbing things with 10 hands and 10 fingers, and it's really amazing that 1 year. But yeah, and obviously after that, the ISB family is, you need anything, you need help, you're in any corner of the world, there is some ISBN somewhere who will come and help you without asking, without an iota of doubt, right? Yeah, so I feel that that family is what, for me, that was the biggest takeaway outside that 1 year.
Yeah, a lot of times what people think is only the placements part. Yes, that is one of the most important part that we go for. But once you graduate from ISB, we realize that okay, monetary part is something which is really good. Things will get taken care of, but there are a lot of other things for which we are living, right? So I think that plays a part there. Correct. Cool. I think one last segment that we have had is regarding placements, and a lot of people have doubts regarding that, and some Reddit posts that people read. So maybe I will be the best person to answer it because I graduated a couple of months ago. So the thing is, I think I'll address it straight away that people were saying that not everyone was getting placed, uh, something like that. The Reddit post was not exactly wrong, but there's another side to it, right? The post was, suppose it was done during January, Feb. By then, not everyone gets placed. There are 800. It's an 800 cohort batch, and it's not very easy to get 800 placements at a very good scale, right? So, yes, there were few people left, around 30-40 people left during Jan Feb. But the thing is, the placement does not stop there. My flatmate from ISB got placed after graduation. So ISB will be there with you until you get placed. And, by the time of graduation or a month after that, everyone gets placed somehow. Yeah. So that's the fact.
And yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, Anand, I'm not sure about how things
Mhm.
went out or placements. So a couple of my friends who were very bullish on what kind of roles they were expecting out of ISB, and they realized that they were not getting these roles from ISB, so they made a conscious decision not to apply via ISB, to apply on their own in market because they had their networks. This is especially true for people who are coming from more than 5-6 years experience. You also bring yourself a network. So don't just feel that your only route to a job is via the placement season. Of course, the placement season is extremely powerful, and the student teams as well as the admission teams work tirelessly to get you the right placement. But having said that, if you're fixated on a role, if you're fixated on an organization or a role, and if that's not something which ISB can offer you off the beat during the placement season, you should definitely start looking for it outside as well. So with your, as I mentioned, with your ISB pedigree or soon to be ISB pedigree when you are applying, then that will open doors for you. So you'll also have to make an effort. It is, don't go to ISB. Like we of course have a very kind of a being born and brought up and educated in India, the spoon feeding concept comes very organically to us, that we expect everything the placements committee would do for us. But no, if you are fixated on a role, and let's say, for example, a very good friend of mine, he was fixated on going to Singapore, right? So he was very fixated on going to Singapore, and he knew that companies who are coming to campus to hire for Singapore roles are only one or two. So what he did started doing was from December or January itself, he started applying to companies who were looking for Singapore roles. He got a job not immediately after ISB, 2 months more. Like we ended college in April, so he got a job in July, wherein he got an opportunity to go to Singapore. So yes, there are people who do not take the placements because they feel those placements are not aligned with their career goals, and they are so fixated and so determined to get those placements from outside the placement circuit of ISB. So if you are very sure on that, you should also do that. Don't think everything will come to you on your plate. For certain things, you'll have to fight it out, and that is not just fight within the ISB cohort, but also fight out at an international level. Because in Singapore, for example, people from all across the world apply to Singaporean companies.
Yeah, I just want to add to that that if you like even in our year there were people who wanted to get into development sector consulting, and those are roles for which companies were not coming back in 2015. But the admissions committee, if you already know which companies are in that space, the admissions committee will help you, because ISB not just for placement, for all the other government engagements, all the other events or the centers of excellence that run, they have a huge network of corporates and companies. So they would help you even if they're not, those companies are not coming for placement, right? As long as you've identified the roles or the companies, the admissions committee will help you either make connections or make warm introductions. Over and above that, I would say also look at your peer group, right? Everyone is coming with work experience, everyone is coming from different sectors, everyone is already well connected before they come into ISB. So also tap into that and not just look at, don't think that you're at this alone. Everyone is there to help you, including the admissions committee as well as your peer group. I mean, including the placement committee as well as your peer group.
Yeah, cool. So one last thing before we end this call is, which a lot of people talk about is networks, right? Once you graduate from ISB, you get tap into the best networking, right? Networking. This is what we all keep hearing about, right? So you have been graduated for almost, it's been, I think, 9, 10 years. So how that has worked for you? Has that, I think you too have experiences of founding your own companies, working in big MNCs. So how that, like, what is that networking thing and how impactful it is?
Sure. I'll give you a very, very recent example, right? Since I'm part of a foundation, fundraising is one, corporate funding is one of the ways, CSR grants, that we run our projects. And there are a lot of ISB folks in company, either in who are handling CSR team, who are part of CSR teams, or there are ISB folks in different companies who can make warm introductions to their team members. And so just last week, I've had three ISB folks from different batches. I just contacted them through the alumni group or also reached out to people on LinkedIn. They've made introductions with CSR teams, and I've been able to connect and have meaningful conversations. So really, anything that you need, anything from personal help to professional help, ISB is really there for you. So you don't have to actively sort of just start going and adding everyone, connect. There are lots of WhatsApp groups which are available. There's an alumni portal. There are meetups that happen where you get opportunities to know people at an interpersonal level also. Yeah, all I would say is, as soon as you tell anyone that you're from ISB and so class, they will do anything that they can to help you, whatever that help is, right? It's that is something very, very different in terms of the network and the family that you build at ISB compared to any other MBA colleges.
Cool. I think um, you summarized this pretty well, Shruti. So I think we are over time and we'll end this session. And for everyone, have any kind of questions, feel free to ping it in the group. We'll try to address as many as possible. And thank you again so much, Shruti and Arijit, for taking out time from your weekend, right? Which is something which is very precious to us. So thank you so much for that. And I hope the session helped a lot of people as well here. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Anand, for setting this up. Yes, I definitely hope that it gave a lot of people in the room more reasons to apply to the program and become part of the family. Yeah, and I'm sure all of you, will be able to demonstrate the best version of yourself in the applications, in the essays, and via the interview. At any point of time, if you feel that you are seeking professional help and you are getting overwhelmed with the entire process, do reach out to us. We'll be able to help you with navigate the journey as we have helped with so many other people in the past.
Yeah. Thanks, Anand. Thanks, Arijit, and all the best to everyone who's thinking of applying to ISB or in any other colleges. Good luck on your journey.
Yeah. Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye bye.
everyone.
Have a good day. Take care. Bye bye.